Welcome to this walkthrough guide on how to use macros in Google Sheets. How much time do you spend every week doing the exact same thing in Google Sheets? Maybe it's cleaning the same messy data export, formatting the same report, or building the same chart from a fresh dataset. Just clicking through the same menus over and over when you know that there has to be a better way. Well, there is. Google Sheets has a built-in feature called macros, and it lets you record those repetitive steps once and replay them with a single click. No code, no extensions, built-in and completely free. Now, a macro is basically just a recording of your actions. You tell Google Sheets, start recording, you do whatever you want to do, click some menus, apply some formatting, run some functions, and then you tell it to stop. Google Sheets then saves all of those steps. And then anytime you want to do that same sequence of actions again, you just run the macro and Sheets does every single step for you, automatically. You can basically think of it like a DVR for your spreadsheet actions. You record once and you can replay it whenever you need it. Now, here is something that I think is really cool, and I want to mention this one early. When you record a macro in Google Sheets, the recorder is actually translating your clicks into a little piece of code behind the scenes. That code runs on something called Google Apps Script, which is Google's built-in scripting language for Workspace. Now, you don't need to touch that code at all, but it means that if you ever want to get more advanced and do more things that the recorder can't capture, like setting up automated triggers or sending emails from your spreadsheet, the door is wide open. And if that does sound interesting to you, I have a full Google Apps Script for Beginners video linked in the description below that takes you way deeper into that world. But for now, zero code. Let's just record some stuff. Alright, now it's time to get hands-on. I've got a pretty standard looking dataset here. Some sales data with columns for date, rep name, region, product, and revenue. The headers aren't styled at all. They just blend in with the data. Every time I get a fresh export of this data, I have to go in and manually bold the headers, give them a background color, and freeze the top row. So let's record that as a macro so that we never have to do it manually again. Step 1 is to go up to extensions, and then macros, and then record macro. A little toolbar will appear at the bottom of your screen. That is your recording indicator. As you can see, it says recording macro and it has a save button. While that's there, every click that you make is being logged. But before I do anything else, I need to choose a reference type. This little dialog at the bottom gives me two options: to use absolute references or to use relative references. I'm going to stop here and explain this properly because it's the thing that catches everyone out the first time, but once you get it, it makes complete sense. Absolute references mean this macro is going to do exactly what I record on exactly the cells I record it on, every single time. So if I bold cell A1 while recording, this macro will bold A1 every time it runs, regardless of what cell I have selected when I trigger it. Relative references, on the other hand, mean this macro is going to do what I record, but relative to whatever cell I currently start from. So if I bold the cell 2 columns to the right while recording from A1, and then I run the macro from D1, it'll bold the cell 2 columns to the right of D1. So it adapts based on where you are. For this first demo, formatting the header row, I want absolute references, because my headers are always in row 1 and they're always in the same place. So I always want to format exactly those cells. So I select Use Absolute References, and now let me do the formatting. I'll select the header row, row 1, and then I'll bold it with Command B, give it a nice grey background color from the Fill Color tool. I'll then make the text white, and then finally I'll go to View, Freeze, One Row to lock the headers in place. And we're done. Now all I need to do is click Save in the recording toolbar, and then give this macro a name. I'm going to call it Format Headers, and I can optionally assign a keyboard shortcut here. I'll give this one Command-Option-Shift-1. Then I click Save again. And that's it. My first macro has been recorded. Now let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to delete all of that formatting that I just applied so that we can see the macro do its job from scratch. Headers are back to their plain, unformatted text. Now to run the macro, I go to Extensions, then Macros, and there it is, Format Headers, with my shortcut listed next to it. I can click it directly from this menu, or I could just hit Command-Option-Shift-1. Now, the first time you run a new macro, something's going to happen that might look a little alarming. Google Sheets is going to ask you for permission. So you'll see this dialog that says Authorization Required, and it's going to ask you to review the permissions that the macro needs. Do not panic. This is completely normal and totally expected. What's happening is that your macro runs as a small script, and Google needs your permission for that script to be able to modify your spreadsheet. Click Continue, select your Google account if prompted, and then on the next screen you might see a Google hasn't verified this app warning. Again, this is just because you're running code from your own spreadsheet and not a published app. Now you only need to do this once per macro. After that, it will run instantly for you every single time. And there we go. Boom, we have our bold headers, our grey background, our white text, and our frozen row. All done with one click. Now, every time I import fresh data and those headers come through unstyled, I can just hit that keyboard shortcut again and it's all sorted for me in under a second. Okay, let's now start to go deeper on the absolute versus relative thing, because I think the best way to understand it is to actually see them both in action. I've got a spreadsheet here with a list of tasks. Each row is a task, and I want to be able to quickly mark any row as complete, which for me means make the text grey, add a strike through, and give the row a light green background. Basically like a visual done indicator. Now, should I use absolute or relative references for this? If I use absolute references, the macro will always apply those styles to the exact cells I was on when I recorded it. So it would only ever work with that one specific row, which, let's be real, is not useful. If I use relative references, the macro will apply those styles relative to whatever row I select before I run it. So I can select any row, run the macro, and it will style that row. And that is exactly what I want. So let's do it again. Extensions, macros, record macro, but then this time I'll select use relative references. I'll click on row 2, just a normal data row, and apply my formatting. So I'll give it some grey text, then we're going to do strike through from the format text strike through option, and then add a light green background to the whole row. Click save, and then I'm going to name it Mark Complete, and give it Command-Option-Shift-2. Now, let me test it on a different row. I'll click anywhere in row 5, and hit Command-Option-Shift-2, and there it is. Row 5 gets the exact same treatment. Grey text, strike through, and a green background. Now, row 7. Same thing. Row 3 works perfectly. That is the power of relative references. You can record your pattern once, and then you can apply it to whatever you've selected when you run it. Basically, it's going to follow you around the spreadsheet. So to summarize, use absolute when you're always working on the same cells, such as formatting a header row, applying styles to a fixed report template, and that kind of thing. But use relative when you want the macro to act on whatever you've currently got selected, styling any row, formatting any range, or working with changing data positions. Now, we all know that keyboard shortcuts are great, but sometimes you want something even more visible, especially if you're building a spreadsheet for other people to use. or you just want a big obvious click here to do the thing button right on your sheet. Google Sheets actually lets you draw a shape, basically a button, and then tie it to a macro. And it is surprisingly simple to set up. All you need to do is go to Insert and then Drawing. You're going to get this drawing canvas. I'm going to draw a rectangle, give it a nice color. I'm going to just use a nice blue here, and then add in some text inside it. In this case, format headers. Then I'll click Save and Close, which will then drop the shape right onto my spreadsheet. I can resize it and I can drag it wherever I want. But now is to link it to the macro. So I'll click on the shape once to select it, and then click the 3 dots that appear in the top right corner. You'll see an option that says Assign Script. Go ahead and click that. In the box that appears, I need to type the exact name of the function my macro created in the app script editor. For a macro called format headers, that's going to be a function called format headers with no spaces. You can find the exact name if you need to by going to Extensions, Macros, Manage Macros, and then clicking Edit on your macro to open the script editor, and then looking at the function name at the top. But go ahead, type that name in and click OK. And now your button is live. All you need to do is click it and your macro runs. This is brilliant for shared spreadsheets. You can put a clean data button right at the top of your import template, and anyone can use it without needing to know a single thing about macros or shortcuts. And let me show you one more practical demo before we wrap up, because I think this one is going to be the one that's probably the most relatable. You know that situation where you get a data export from some system, maybe your CRM or an accounting tool or a survey platform, and it always tends to come through really messy. Extra spaces in the cells, duplicate rows, inconsistent column widths, no borders on the table, and you can then spend the first 10 minutes of every analysis just cleaning the thing up before you can even start working. Well, we can record a macro for exactly that scenario. So my data comes in here with some inconsistent spacing in the text cells, duplicate rows in the dataset, no borders on the table, everything's all kind of messed up. My cleaning steps every single time are going to be first select the data range and use data cleanup, remove duplicates to kill all the dupes. Second, select the text columns and use data cleanup, trim whitespace to clean up all that spacing. And then third, select the full data range and add a border from the border tool in the toolbar. So let me record all of that. We have extensions, macros, record macro. I'm going to use absolute references here because my data always starts in the same place on this import template. Now I run through all 3 steps exactly as I normally would. And once that's done, we go save, give it a name of clean import data, and then give it that keyboard shortcut of Command-Option-Shift-3. Now, let me reset the spreadsheet to the messy state, as if I had pasted in a fresh, messy export. Hit Command-Option-Shift-3, and watch. Every step fires in sequence. The duplicates are gone, the white space gets trimmed, and the borders get applied. The whole cleanup that on a large enough data set could take a few minutes is now done in 3 seconds. That's basically the point of macros. It's not just saving you a few clicks, it's saving the mental overhead of even needing to remember which steps to do in what order every single time. You basically only need to do the thinking once. The macro does it forever after. Now, as you build up a library of macros, you'll want to know how to manage them. Go to Extensions, Macros, Manage Macros. This is your macros dashboard. You can see all of your saved macros here with their names and assigned shortcuts. And from here, you can rename them. You can just click the name and edit it. Keep the names descriptive so that future you knows exactly what it is they do. You can change or add keyboard shortcuts, so click the shortcut field and type in a new number. Just remember though, you can only have 10 shortcuts per spreadsheet at a time using the numbers 0 through 9. If you have more than 10 macros, the extras can only be run from the Extensions, Macros menu, or via buttons, which is fine for macros that you tend to use less frequently. You can even delete them. Simply click the 3 dots next to any macro and hit remove. And then, if you need to, you can even edit the script. And that's where it kind of gets interesting. Click the 3 dots and hit edit script, and you'll be taken to the app script editor where you can see the actual code that your recording generated. And if you're curious and want to start tweaking things, maybe you want to change a color value or adjust which range gets targeted, this is where you can do it. But again, you don't need to go anywhere near this in order to use macros effectively. It's just there if you want it. Now, one more thing worth knowing as well, macros are saved to the specific spreadsheet that they're created in. So if you want to use the same macro in a different spreadsheet, you'd need to go into the script editor, copy the function code, and paste it into the new spreadsheet's script editor. It's a little bit manual, but it works. And if you find yourself doing that a lot, that's a strong signal that Google Apps Script proper might be worth learning, because it lets you create reusable libraries. As always, link in the description for that video. So there you have it. Google Sheets macros from 0 to genuinely useful. One quick honest note before I wrap up, macros are not a solution for everything. If you need your automation to make decisions, like if this value is over 100, do this, otherwise do that, or if you need them to loop through every row in a dataset or trigger automatically when something changes in your sheet, the recorder can't do any of that. For that level of power, you'll need to look at Google Apps Script, which is actually what's running under the hood every time a macro fires. But for the vast majority of everyday spreadsheet repetition, so formatting, cleaning, sorting, charting, macros are genuinely all you need. The best thing you can do right now is go find that one thing that you do manually in Google Sheets every single week, even if it's just one, record a macro for it and see how it feels. So get out there and start recording, and I'll catch you in my next video. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to check out the channel. And if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.